What's up, adventurers, and welcome to a brand new ShawnSetGO video. Just to start, we're going to be talking about some of the most recent updates and surveys that are coming to the game, but I wanted to start with a bit of transparency. In some of my comments, I've noticed a few of people commenting that, you know, without the proper Mythic score or rating, that I can't make criticisms or make observations about it. And so I want to be transparent about things. And so in the past week, I was like, all right, let's do a grind. Let's see if all the things I'm saying are still valid, you know, with the Mythic score. And so right now, I'm sitting at Mythic rating 2227. And, you know, nothing's that like super high or anything like that, but just grinding at it just to kind of get this score to match my criticism. So I'm going to work to at least match what some of you have been expecting from me, which is if you're going to make any sort of comments, then try to match that level. So today we're going to be talking about a most recent survey, but I wanted to talk about a couple of posts first. So this first post says, tanking today, a punishing role driving players away. I've been alting as a tank since Wrath of the Lich King, and I used to be pure fun. I love occasionally stepping into a dungeon or raid as a tank. It wasn't stressful, just engaging and fun. Even when Mythic Plus was introduced, learning routes was straightforward, and achieving Keystone Hero was challenging but enjoyable. Now tanking has become stress-inducing, joyless grind. Every pull needs to be perfect, every route optimal, or you're to blame for not timing the key. Instead of feeling accomplished after a run, I'm just relieved it's over. The level of responsibility is driving casual tanks like me, those who just want to have fun. I'm almost certain that the only ones left tanking are diehard players who mastered every route, the pull in perfection. Those who haven't, those are the ones who break your key the first pull and never queue again as a tank. If you fail to tank, the group disbands and the key is bricked. If you fail as a DPS, there's no big deal. Why can't tanking be fun again? I will say, you know, I mean, we just had the spiel about me tanking. For me, it's personally been Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. It's been a brutal series of tanking effects that I think that will make the tank experience super unfun. Even though like itself, Ara-Kara is not a bad place to do Mythic Plus in. It really isn't. Same thing with Grim Batal. Same thing with for me. It's just certain areas in the game, I think, have certain effects per tank that it's just like it's a harder aspect to cover, or it's a more difficult to cover at the higher key levels. And so I think that for a lot of people, when you're looking at how do we route, how do we do things properly according to what's the most common, I don't want to say meta, but most commonly used routing, for the most part, it's kind of trial and error. For the most part, if I'm not pulling fast enough, if I'm not doing the proper routes, people will start pulling for me, and I kind of adjust from there. And that's kind of usually how I do things in pugs. Even if I'm in a group with like one or two people, I'll kind of be like, hey, is this the one? Hey, is this the one? And you figure it out. But like, I think the frustrating part about that is that there is a commonly like, this is the route, and then no other route is the one you can do. And if you do the other routes, it's kind of, you're wasting everyone's time. So I think that's kind of the unfortunate part about dungeon design, like turning it back around, not necessarily on the community, but back on the developers, where Mythic Plus dungeon design, there is a clear and obvious perfect route for things. And if you go outside of that, it's actively wasting the time of your dungeon. It doesn't feel like every route possible. Like, this is the way I imagine it should be. You should test every possible route to get to 100. You should feed this into a number generator and go, all right, you do this route, can you still get 100 and make time? Can you do this route, make 100, make time? Even with, you know, some deaths here and there, and then you know, stopping for pulls, stopping before bosses, etc. If that's not the case, to me, there should be at least like 10 decent routes to work with. But nowadays, when I'm tanking, it's almost like I don't even have to say a single word. People will automatically go towards the routes that are the most effective without anything being pre-established or said. And that's not good. I think it needs to be to where everyone can experience a whole dungeon and not just skip massive parts of a dungeon. Going back to Ara-Kara, you know, like it's the same exact way. Everyone does it one way. There's massive chunks that you skip and don't do, and there's also versions of it. It's like, it's like we could do this version if we have a really good group. We do this. We have to do this version because we're a pug. Like that shouldn't be it. That seems incredibly basic. So moving on to the next post here. I do agree with what this person has to say about tanking being a punishing role. I do think that it kind of misses the point though. I think that tanking is still very much can be fun. I think that a lot of people stop whenever they fail, because tanks fail keys, and they see that failure as not as an opportunity to improve, but as kind of like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. Do I think it should be less punishing for tanks in some sort of way? Yes. I don't necessarily have a route for that. You know, for tanks not wiping keys, you know, making it less punishing specifically for tanks, but it's kind of like a single point of failure that, you know, that kills 5 people, and then that's a lot of time when you think about it in total, and then run back on top of that. It's just a lot of time. Next post I saw says, I haven't attempted a single Mythic Plus or non-FL raid this expansion, and I've had so much fun playing the game. So kind of continuing on along the line of nobody's playing tanks, and then you have people who are not even playing the challenging content, and then inversely enjoying the game. Honestly, I've avoided all the stress, pressure, and time commitment just to get a few higher item levels on your gear. Made me appreciate and enjoy the game so much. Having a 619 item level hard cap, easily achievable by solo play, provides a solid upgrade path. And in all honesty, unless you're heroic, raid, or mythic plus higher keys, there's absolutely no need to go above that. This expansion being so all friendly as well made me create 8 alts so far. Just need 2 more to complete all classes. Currently, I'm working towards the Legion class halls for my alts, unlocking the artifact weapon skins, etc, etc. Anyways, game feels much better without the stress of Mythic Plus and raiding. I have never enjoyed WoW so much. I feel like raiding gets a bad rap because people think it's just like Mythic Plus, but I really think it's a whole different experience when you think about it in like cumulatively. I think raiding feels different than Mythic Plus. So I don't want to dismiss this entirely, but I do kind of want to say that it's not fair to be like raids are an experience. I would say the only downside of raids, especially when pugging, normal or heroic, is once you get to Silken Court and beyond. Silken Court and beyond, maybe Brood Twister, for those who don't know how to like group up the mobs and pop the eggs. But for the most part, I would say that raiding is quite fun. Still, you know, it still has a lot of enjoyment out of it, a lot of coordination still, and a lot of mechanics still. But I mean, not everything is a face roll, but still, I think there's a lot of really enjoyable parts about raiding. Additionally, I mean, this is the point that they made, basically having a higher item level while still doing solo content. I will say this does make me think that I miss high level gearing being able to help you just kind of make lower level content easier. Like I can do a lower key, like up to a 5 key, despite being, I think it's like 616 item level is what I'm at, and still like there's struggles. Like, you know, like if I have one DPS underperforming, it's obvious. If I have a healer underperforming, it's obvious. And it's like, I feel like I should be able to offset that a bit more with my gear. It seems like it used to be that to where if you had a single piece of gear, you could change your whole aspect of how you play or how much damage you're doing. But now it seems like it's more of an item level benchmark, that once you reach that benchmark, things below that become easier, but it's not as clear. Like, you have to upgrade every piece of gear. You have to everything has to, it's more like it's less important that you have your optimal secondary stat, and it's just more important that you just have the item level that's there, and that's kind of unfortunate, because like the gear identity, like the gear difference, the excitement about gear and how much you're doing now that you've reached a certain item level, it feels less significant. So I would say that's the unfortunate part about it, and what maybe that people are are not realizing that they're feeling in these moments. So me being 2 weeks into WoW for the first time in my life, wondering what is everyone talking about when I spend my days fishing, trying to find cool mounts and weapons, while also being entirely confused on how to go about questing for said items, while also being completely overwhelmed by the amount of content I get to play through. Yeah, I mean, I think for some people that's okay. I think for some people that's okay. I think that in this expansion, more than ever, what we are experiencing is a number of people who do not enjoy all the content, but enjoy certain niche levels of content. I will say for this expansion, this is going to be my controversial statement of the video. For this expansion, more than ever, the people who are at threat are the people trying to do end game level content. It used to be that if you were in everything besides end game level content, you could do those things, but you won't be able to reach, you know, the full breach of what you could achieve unless you do raiding. Like it was limited at raiding. Like raiding was where it was at, and then Mythic Plus was added, and then sort of Mythic Plus took the place of raiding, of being this end game type of thing. But in reality, now you have solo content on top of that, and so now you have all these avenues in which you can do content, and it doesn't feel like anymore that people want to bridge over to the higher levels of content, just because to most people, they don't care if their item level says 619 or if it says 636. It just doesn't matter to people. You're able to do all of the content, even some of the higher levels of content, with that item level. So why care? Why care beyond that? And so you have a lot of people who are on the end game level of content, like on their edge of content, their very edge of content, their niche of content, going, we're going to hold here and we're going to gatekeep everyone else who's trying to bridge over, because they're like the edge that they're standing on is so thin that they feel like if they give up any ground, they're going to fall. It's Creed's 6 Feet from the Edge song. Read it, listen to it, I guess now. But continuing, like, these are the obvious concerns between the people trying to do the harder content and some of the people who have no desire to do the harder content. But where is Blizzard's mind right now? You're wondering, what are they thinking about? Like, what are they trying to do? You know, like, where are their minds at? Their minds are at, Blizzard is considering adding a death limit to Mythic Plus keys. So, new survey went out, mostly feeling player sentiment, but 2 questions in particular hinted at change to Mythic Plus. Blizzard is considering adding a hard death limit to keys, similar to Delves. Blizzard is considering adding tags to LFG, tagging your group as completion, learning group, going for time, only accepting meta. So, instead of trying to bridge these gaps that we're talking about, we're getting surveys that are like, hey, we're just gonna make it to where you can't die enough, or you're gonna get less valuable things. At first I was like, oh, death limit, okay, that makes sense. Like, basically, like, if we're racking up deaths, you know, yeah, say we rack up like 4 to 10 deaths before a first boss, maybe there's a max amount you can achieve. That way it's like, hey, you're not going to be punished anymore for deaths. Like, just learn it, figure it out. But no, instead it's let's make this more punishing, because the more deaths you get, the less rewards you get. So deaths are going to be that much more of a toxic feature in the game, to where you're going to feel punished. That slim chance you have of getting deaths and still being able to complete a mythic are now being depleted even more so. So let's see what this says. Says revives remaining, release spirit subtracts revives remaining. You and your companion will retreat when there are no revives remaining. And I think additionally it'll say the rewards will kind of die down. So, and then just a basic, you know, like how interested you are in this. So I think this is missing the point entirely of what people want. I think that while the tagging is a good thing, then you're also preventing people from, you're kind of saying the quiet part out loud. A lot of people, when you look at people who are a meta spec, you have to naturally filter out, is this person playing the meta spec because it's the meta spec, or are they playing it because they're good at it? And then on top of that, is this person's IO score because they're good at the game, or is this the highest clear that they've done of any mythic and they just got a good group and got carried? So it's like, now on top of that, we're filtering for this, like it's like, so now you're going, is this group tagged on top of this as a learning group and they're going to be able to clear this, or I'm just going to ignore this entirely because it says learning group and this is a potential for not being able to do this. To me, this separates players. It creates rifts between players. This doesn't help people group effectively. All this does is divide people. So what are my ideas for fixing this? Like I said with the first one, I think the idea should always be to make the game to where even failure is possible within a successful key. So if you're getting those first early wipes, and say you wipe twice, to me, after that, this should not add, because it's like, let people learn. The timer's already draining. Let people learn. People make mistakes. You know, those things happen. Adding death, reduction to time isn't going to make people better. It's just not going to allow people that chance to learn. It's like whenever you like if you surrender in a league game, for example, it's not, we're learning from this failure. It's too far beyond, and we're not going to learn any further by playing this anymore. At least that's the opinion of some. I think personally you shouldn't surrender in those type of games. You just learn, you figure it out, and you try to see if you can offset or try to at least improve your KD ratio, etc. But I think all this does is it just makes it to where people now will leave ever more than ever, or suddenly go offline, and it doesn't help anybody. And then for the second part, it's like, instead of having these groups to where you're going to allow people to create a separation between their clique and your clique, or the people in the middle ground, instead, if you are a group and you calculate their IO scores, you calculate their gear level, their maximum gear level, they can't just switch gear and then just be like, oh, yep, see, it's good. But if you can see their IO score and you can see their gear level, then allow them to have a little bit of a buff or a feature or something that allows for less punishing features, so they can get it or get more time to understand it. I'm not saying for the highest levels of keys, these are things that can be like, you sort of wean people off as they get in higher keys, but allow people these opportunities to do this, so they can still learn the mechanics of the fight and then still get these clears. But then also, by the time they get the higher keys, they're not toxic themselves, and they can actually make an active effect on bringing the next group of people who are trying to get their characters up or their alts up. So stop creating these things to divide people and create things to connect people and allow people to join keys and complete keys. It's not a huge deal. Like, listen, I'm in a position where I have tank prio, like it's always great to get selected in keys. But every time I do it and I invite somebody who's like lower level, I don't care if it's healer or DPS, I'll get messages from people being like, hey, I wouldn't invite them, because there's these unheard, unsung, unshown features that, like, if people are from certain realms, or if people are meta or off meta specs, like there is a lot of things that people do that it's straight up, I mean, let's just be honest, it's like in-game discrimination. And so we're at a point in the game that I think Blizzard thinks that what we want to do to save our time is to make those clear divisions clearer. But I think that's the opposite of what should be done. What needs to be done is we need to do things to bridge those two things, and make players want to play more and do more, because there are players who want to do better. If I'm an example of anything, it's one comment of someone going, you don't know what you're talking about, and now I'm doing +8s, and I'm like, all right, I still have the same opinion. All right, now what? Like, now what? I still have the same opinion. And so these gatekeeping attitudes are now bridging into the developers' minds, it feels like, and I don't think that's what needs to happen. To be honest, I think it needs to be, we need to create things, to design things that help people integrate into the form of gameplay that they're trying to do, and not just have an obvious cutoff where people go, well, you know, I did delves, that's it. You know, I'm not saying make delves like Mythics. I'm not saying connect those contents in that way. I'm just saying make things more approachable for people trying new content, or trying to do more difficult content is always the goal. But that's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, like and subscribe to the page. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're on the road to hopefully one day 2,000. So I want to keep on grinding and keep on showing you guys that I can stay along with the content and keep up with the content that's coming along as it approaches us. So hope you enjoyed it, but until next time, I'll catch you in the next one.